Why most people fail. They think rich, but act poor. There's a devastating truth that Napoleon Hill discovered after studying over 500 of the world's most successful individuals, and it's this: the greatest tragedy in human potential isn't the person who never dreams big. It's the person who dreams magnificently but lives small. Every morning, millions wake up visualizing wealth, imagining success, and declaring their intention to break free from mediocrity. They read the books, watch the videos, repeat the affirmations. They think rich thoughts, harbor rich dreams, and speak rich words. Yet when the sun sets on their days, their actions tell a completely different story. They think like millionaires but act like victims. They dream like champions but perform like spectators. This is the silent epidemic destroying more potential than any economic crisis, more dreams than any recession, and more destinies than any external force ever could. It's the gap, the chasm between intention and action, between what we know and what we do, between who we want to become and who we choose to be in the crucial moments when nobody's watching. Andrew Carnegie understood this when he told Hill that thinking alone is nothing but organized daydreaming unless it's coupled with definite, persistent, intelligent action. Carnegie didn't become the richest man in America by simply thinking rich thoughts. He became rich because every single day, in every decision, in every moment of truth, he acted in perfect harmony with his burning desire for success. But here's where most people get it catastrophically wrong. They believe that positive thinking is enough. They believe that visualization alone will somehow magnetize success into their lives. They spend their mornings meditating on abundance and their evenings making excuses for why abundance hasn't arrived. They invest more energy in talking about success than in doing the uncomfortable, unglamorous, relentless work that success demands. The truth is this: your thoughts are the blueprint, but your actions are the building. And no blueprint, no matter how magnificent, ever sheltered a family or created an empire. Only the building does that. Only the action does that. Thomas Edison didn't just think about the light bulb. He failed over 1,000 times before he succeeded. Henry Ford didn't just visualize the automobile revolution. He worked 18-hour days in a cramped garage facing ridicule and financial ruin. Walt Disney didn't just dream about an entertainment empire. He was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and went bankrupt multiple times before creating the magic kingdom that would define childhood for generations. These men understood something that most people never grasp. Success is not a destination you think your way to. It's a daily discipline you act your way through. It's not about having the right thoughts. It's about taking the right actions, especially when those actions feel wrong, uncomfortable, or impossible. The person who thinks rich but acts poor lives in a perpetual state of cognitive dissonance. They want the penthouse but take the elevator that stops at mediocrity. They desire the corner office but show up with the effort of someone satisfied with a cubicle. They dream of financial freedom but make financial decisions from a poverty mindset. They talk about excellence but settle for good enough when no one's looking. This is why most people fail. Not because they lack the capacity to succeed, not because the odds are stacked against them, not because they weren't born with the right advantages. They fail because they've mastered the art of self-deception. They've convinced themselves that intention equals action, that planning equals progress, that knowing equals doing. But the universe doesn't respond to your thoughts. It responds to your actions. Success doesn't care about your vision board. It cares about your work ethic. Wealth doesn't materialize from positive affirmations. It manifests from positive actions compounded over time. The law of attraction isn't about attracting. It's about becoming. And you become what you repeatedly do, not what you repeatedly think about doing. Consider this stark reality. Every single day, you are either moving toward your dreams or away from them. There is no neutral ground. There is no standing still. Every choice, every action, every moment of decision is either an investment in your future self or a withdrawal from your potential. The rich thinking, poor acting person makes withdrawals all day long while telling themselves they're making deposits. They withdraw when they hit the snooze button instead of rising early to work on their dreams. They withdraw when they scroll through social media instead of reading books that could transform their thinking. They withdraw when they spend money on immediate gratification instead of investing in their long-term vision. They withdraw when they choose comfort over growth, ease over effort, excuses over execution. Meanwhile, the person who thinks rich and acts rich makes deposits all day long. They deposit when they choose the difficult conversation over comfortable silence. They deposit when they invest in their education while others invest in entertainment. They deposit when they practice discipline in private so they can enjoy freedom in public. They deposit when they do what they don't feel like doing because they know it's what they need to do. The great lie of our time is that success is complicated. It's not. Success is simple. It's just not easy. The formula is ancient and unchanging. Align your actions with your aspirations, and time will close the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Misalign them, and time will widen that gap until your dreams become nothing more than distant memories of what could have been. This is the principle of applied faith, not just believing in your ability to succeed, but acting on that belief with such consistency and conviction that success becomes inevitable. It's the difference between hoping for a better life and building one. It's the difference between wishing for wealth and working for it. It's the difference between dreaming of greatness and doing the great work. The rich-thinking, poor-acting person lives in the future or the past, but never in the present moment where all power exists. They're always planning for tomorrow or regretting yesterday, but they're never fully engaged in today. The only day where progress is possible, where dreams are built, where success is earned. Every morning brings you the same choice. Will you think rich and act rich, or will you think rich and act poor? Will your actions match your ambitions, or will there be a gap between who you say you want to become and who you choose to be? Will you close the space between intention and action, or will you widen it with another day of grand plans and small efforts? The person who acts rich, regardless of their current bank balance, understands that wealth is first and foremost a way of being, not just a way of having. They understand that you don't get rich and then start acting rich. You start acting rich and then become rich. They know that prosperity is an inside job that manifests outside results. Acting rich doesn't mean spending money you don't have or living beyond your means. That's acting foolish, not acting rich. Acting rich means making decisions from abundance instead of scarcity. It means investing in yourself when others invest in liabilities. It means choosing quality over quantity, value over price, long-term growth over short-term comfort. The rich acting person wakes up early not because they have to, but because they know that the early hours belong to those who are serious about their future. They read books not because someone's making them, but because they understand that the person who stops learning stops growing, and the person who stops growing starts dying. They network not to take from others, but to add value to others, knowing that genuine wealth is built through genuine relationships. They save money not out of fear, but out of wisdom, understanding that every dollar saved is a vote of confidence in their future self. They invest not just financially, but personally, in their health, their skills, their character, their relationships. Most importantly, they act with integrity when no one's watching because they know that character is the foundation upon which all lasting success is built. They keep their word to themselves before they worry about keeping their word to others because self-trust is the first trust and the most important trust. But here's where the tragedy deepens. The gap between thinking rich and acting rich isn't just about money. It's about every area of life where potential goes unrealized. It's the person who thinks fit but acts lazy. The person who thinks successful but acts comfortable. The person who thinks influential but acts invisible. They know what they should do. They're experts at knowing. They can give you chapter and verse on success principles, quote every motivational speaker, and recite every strategy. But knowing and doing are separated by the same chasm that separates the dreamer from the achiever, the wisher from the warrior, the talker from the doer. John D. Rockefeller, once the richest man in the world, was asked the secret of his success. His answer was deceptively simple. I believe in the sacredness of work, not the sacredness of thinking about work, not the sacredness of planning work, but the sacredness of work itself, the doing, the acting, the daily discipline of showing up and delivering excellence whether you feel like it or not. The rich-thinking, poor-acting person has made comfort their God and convenience their religion. They worship at the altar of I'll start tomorrow and pray to the deity of when I feel ready. They've convinced themselves that success should feel good, that growth should be comfortable, that achievement should be easy. But every person who has ever achieved anything significant knows that success is uncomfortable. It requires you to do things you don't want to do, when you don't want to do them for longer than you want to do them. It demands that you become comfortable being uncomfortable, that you embrace the friction instead of avoiding it. The gap between rich thinking and rich acting is filled with one thing: resistance. Stephen Pressfield calls it the enemy of every artist, entrepreneur, and dreamer. It's the force that makes you procrastinate when you should produce, rationalize when you should recognize, and settle when you should strive. Resistance is why you plan more than you execute. It's why you research more than you risk. It's why you prepare more than you perform. Resistance convinces you that thinking is doing, that planning is progress, that someday is a real day on the calendar. But here's what the most successful people throughout history have discovered. Resistance isn't something to be eliminated. It's something to be overcome. Every single day, in every single moment of truth. When you feel like quitting, you continue. When you feel like sleeping in, you get up. When you feel like taking the easy path, you take the right path. Walt Disney faced resistance when everyone told him that a mouse couldn't be a movie star. He overcame it by creating Mickey Mouse anyway. Ray Kroc faced resistance when everyone thought the world didn't need another hamburger restaurant. He overcame it by building McDonald's into a global empire. Oprah Winfrey faced resistance from a childhood of poverty and abuse. She overcame it by becoming one of the most influential media personalities in history. None of these people succeeded because they felt like succeeding. They succeeded because they acted like success was their destiny, even when everything around them suggested otherwise. They closed the gap between thinking and acting, between dreaming and doing, between wishing and working. The person who thinks rich but acts poor is living in a prison of their own making. The walls are made of excuses, the bars are forged from procrastination, and the lock is fashioned from the belief that someday, somehow, things will magically change without them having to change first. But the person who thinks rich and acts rich holds the key to their own freedom. They understand that every action is a choice, every choice is a vote, and they're voting for the person they're committed to becoming. They know that success isn't about perfect actions, it's about persistent actions. It's not about being right all the time, it's about being consistent over time. Consider the brutal mathematics of mediocrity. If you improve by just 1% each day, 1% better actions, 1% more discipline, 1% greater commitment, you'll be 37 times better by the end of the year. But if you decline by just 1% each day, 1% more excuses, 1% less effort, 1% weaker resolve, you'll be virtually nothing by year's end. This is the compound effect of actions over time. This is why the gap between rich thinking and rich acting isn't just a gap. It's an exponentially growing chasm that eventually becomes unbridgeable. Every day you think rich but act poor, you're not just standing still, you're falling behind at an accelerating rate. The rich acting person understands that success is not a sprint, it's a marathon of daily decisions. It's not about the dramatic moments that everyone sees, it's about the mundane moments that nobody sees. It's not about the once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, it's about the once-in-a-day opportunities that most people miss because they're too busy thinking about tomorrow's opportunities. They know that champions are made in practice, not in games. Fortunes are built in private, not in public. Character is forged in solitude, not in crowds. The person who acts rich doesn't need applause to act excellently, recognition to work relentlessly, or permission to pursue their dreams. Napoleon Hill discovered through his extensive research that every successful person possessed what he called a definiteness of purpose, not just a definite purpose, but a definiteness of purpose. The difference is profound. A definite purpose is knowing what you want. Definiteness of purpose is being so committed to what you want that your actions become inevitable expressions of that commitment. The person with definiteness of purpose doesn't struggle with motivation because their actions flow naturally from their identity. They don't have to force themselves to work hard because working hard is simply who they are. They don't have to remember to act rich because acting rich has become their natural state of being. But definiteness of purpose isn't something you think your way into, it's something you act your way into. It's forged in the fire of repeated right actions, especially when those actions feel wrong. It's developed in the moments when you choose growth over comfort, progress over perfection, action over analysis. The person who thinks rich but acts poor lacks this definiteness of purpose. They have wishes instead of wants, preferences instead of convictions, good intentions instead of relentless actions. They've never crossed the Rubicon from wishing to becoming, from hoping to being, from someday to today. Abraham Lincoln understood this when he said, "I will prepare, and someday my chance will come." Notice he didn't say, "I will think about preparing," or "I will plan to prepare." He said, "I will prepare." Action, present tense, definite commitment, and his preparation wasn't for someday, it was for today, knowing that today's preparation becomes tomorrow's opportunity. Lincoln didn't wait until he felt ready to become president. He acted presidential long before he became president. He didn't wait until he felt like a leader to start leading. He led from where he was, with what he had, for as long as it took. He closed the gap between thinking and acting so completely that when his moment came, he was already the man the moment required. This is the secret that the rich thinking, poor acting person never grasps. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. You don't achieve what you hope for. You achieve what you prepare for. You don't become what you think about. You become what you repeatedly do. Your habits are your destiny in slow motion. Every habit is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Every action is either reinforcing the person you want to be or the person you're trying to leave behind. There is no neutral action, no inconsequential choice, no meaningless moment. The rich acting person has rich habits. They have morning routines that set them up for success, not set them back with distractions. They have learning habits that compound their knowledge, not entertainment habits that compound their ignorance. They have financial habits that build their wealth, not consumption habits that build their debt. They understand that habits are not restrictions on freedom, they are the foundation of freedom. The habit of rising early creates the freedom of extra productive hours. The habit of saving money creates the freedom of financial options. The habit of exercise creates the freedom of physical capability. The habit of reading creates the freedom of mental agility. But perhaps most importantly, they have the habit of taking action before they feel ready, because they know that feeling ready is not a prerequisite for acting ready. They know that confidence comes from competence, and competence comes from consistent action, not consistent contemplation. The person who thinks rich but acts poor is always waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect feeling. They've made perfection the enemy of progress, readiness the enemy of action, someday the enemy of today. They're eternal students who never become teachers, eternal planners who never become performers, eternal dreamers who never become doers. They've confused motion with action, busy work with productive work, good intentions with great results. They mistake activity for achievement, effort for effectiveness, trying for succeeding. They're working hard at being busy, instead of being busy at working hard on what matters. The rich acting person knows the difference between effort and results, between activity and productivity, between being busy and being effective. They measure their success not by how busy they feel, but by how much they've moved the needle on their most important goals. They focus on outcomes, not just outputs. They focus on effectiveness, not just efficiency. They focus on doing the right things right, not just doing things right. They know that you can climb the ladder of success very efficiently, but if it's leaning against the wrong wall, all your efficiency is wasted effort.